Thanks for joining our special live coverage of the policy discussion with citizens. We are waiting for the 14th such meeting to begin, as was the case for the last edition, which took place in Ulsan City. The talks will once again take place outside the capital, Seoul, this time in Changwon City. Now, the theme today is reigniting nuclear energy sector. President Yoon Suk-yeol is set to deliver an opening remark with investment into nuclear power R&D and development of the Changwon industrial complex expected to be addressed. If we look over some of the sessions that took place in the past few weeks, for the first time in 20 years, the government has decided to lift greenbelt zones or land protected from development in the regions outside the capital area to boost the regional economy. And in Ulsan, a city well known for research and development, the president vowed full support for young scientists and researchers so that they focus on their studies and research without worrying about tuition and their living expenses. At least 800,000 Korean won, or about $600 per month, will be made available for master's students, and around $820 for people doing PhDs. And in Busan, President Yoon pledged to turn the city into a global business hub. That's in line with the country's ambitions to narrow regional gaps and spur development across areas outside the capital's Seoul. The government also pledged to continue to ease parental concerns over childcare. Now, here in South Korea, after-school childcare services called Nilbom School will be expanded to all elementary schools by the second semester of 2024. Plus, major medical reforms are on the way. That is doubling down on the plan to increase medical personnel and provide quality healthcare even in remote areas. And the ultimate goal is to address the chronic shortage of physicians here in the country. Also decided during past discussions was the streamlining of administrative services by making hundreds of services fully digital over the next 3 years. If we look on the housing, the Yoon administration is going to scrap regulations that hinder redevelopment and reconstruction. On top of that, some, quote, bold reforms for stock market taxes are on the way. That is to correct the perceived undervaluation of South Korean shares and also improve the financial situation of ordinary people. Now, South Korean presidents in the past typically started a new year by receiving briefings from each ministry on their plans on the coming year. But this policy discussions with citizens, a new format, is part of the government's efforts to implement President Yoon's vision for an action-oriented, problem-solving government, not a government that just carries out reviews. And after holding 10 discussions in the capital region here in Seoul, President Yoon Suk-yeol is traveling around the country to hold more talks with citizens on livelihood issues. We are still waiting for the 14th such meeting to begin. And just like the last one yesterday, which took place in Ulsan City, the talks today will take place once again in a minute, this time in Changwon City, that's in Gyeongsangnam-do province. The theme today is reigniting nuclear energy sector. President Yoon Suk-yeol will deliver in a moment an opening remark as he has done in the past 13 sessions, this time focusing on investment into nuclear power R&D and development of the Changwon industrial complex. Those are the top topics expected to be addressed. Now, let's look over some of the sessions that took place in the past few weeks while we wait for the president. Just yesterday, the government, for the first time in 20 years, decided to lift this greenbelt zones, or known as the land protected from development in the regions outside the capital area, all to boost the regional economy. And also in Ulsan, a city well known for research and development, there the South Korean leader also pledged full support for young scientists and researchers so that they focus on their studies and research without worrying too much about their tuition or living expenses. To do that, at least 800,000 Korean won, or that's about $600, that will be made available every month for master's students. And for those who are doing PhDs, $820 will be given every month. Now, down in Busan City, President Yoon pledged to turn the Busan city into a global business hub. That is to that stays in line with the country's ambitions to narrow regional gaps and also boost development across areas outside the capital region, including here in Seoul. And the government also pledged to continue ease parental concerns over childcare, after-school childcare services that is known as Nilbom School. That services will be expanded to all elementary schools by the second semester. Plus, major medical reforms will be on the way. That is doubling down on the plan to increase medical personnel and provide a quality healthcare even in remote areas. That's the ultimate goal of addressing the chronic shortage of physicians and doctors here in South Korea. And in addition, also decided was the streamlining of administrative services by making hundreds of services fully digital over the next 3 years. And also touched upon was the housing. The Yoon administration is going to scrap regulations which hinder redevelopment and reconstruction here in South Korea. And some bold reforms for stock market taxes will be on the way to correct the perceived undervaluation of South Korean shares and also improve the financial situation of ordinary people here in the country. Now, the policy discussions with citizens is a new format that's been adopted by the Yoon administration. Now, to remind you, South Korean presidents in the past typically started the new year by receiving briefings from each ministry on their plans for the coming year. But for the past 13 sessions, not only ministers from each ministry, but also experts and ordinary people have participated, seeking ways to really make ordinary people's lives better. That meets in line with the action-oriented and problem-solving government that Yoon administration pursues, and not just the government that carries out reviews. Now, to remind you, the President Yoon Suk-yeol has been delivering opening remarks for the first 10 sessions here in the capital, Seoul. And after that, President Yoon Suk-yeol has been traveling around the country to hold more talks, inviting more citizens from all areas, from all ages, to make that engagement more lively. We are waiting for the 14th such meeting to begin. And as was the case for the last edition, which took place in Ulsan City just yesterday, and talks today will take place in Changwon City, Gyeongsang-namdo Province. This time, the theme will be Reigniting Nuclear Energy Sector. President Yoon is set to deliver an opening comment with investment into nuclear power R&D and development of the Changwon Industrial Complex expected to be addressed. Now, again, just yesterday, the South Korean government, for the first time in 20 years, has decided to lift that land protected from development. Those are the greenbelt zones in the regions outside the capital area, just to boost the regional economy. And on top of that, in Ulsan City, the President Yoon Suk-yeol vowed full support for young scientists and researchers so that they don't have to worry about their tuitions and living expenses, just focusing on their studies and research, which means the government will be providing at least 800,000 Korean won, or around $600 per month every month, available of master's students. So $600 for master's students and $820 per month for people doing PhDs. Now, we've covered so far the Ulsan City, now today Changwon, and just in Busan City, President Yoon pledged to turn that hub city into a global business hub. That's in line with the country's pursuit of narrowing regional gaps and really spurring the development across areas nationwide, not just here in the capital area. Now, to really tackle the notoriously low birth rate here in South Korea, the government's efforts to ease parental concerns over childcare have been really active and ongoing under the Yoon administration. Just to name one, it's the Nulbom School. That's the after-school childcare services that will be expanded to all elementary schools by the second semester. So President Yoon Suk-yeol has just arrived. We'll come back right after his opening remarks.
네, 먼저 국민의례가
First of
있겠습니다.
all, we
모두 국기를
will
향해 주시기
pledge
바랍니다.
allegiance to the flag. Please face the flag.
국기에 대하여 경례.
Salute to the flag.
바로
At ease,
모두 자리에 앉아 주시기
please
바랍니다.
be seated.
네, 그럼 지금부터
We would like to
국민과
begin
함께하는
the policy
민생토론회를
discussion with
시작하겠습니다.
citizens.
대한민국 원전산업의 중심지죠.
This is a place where the nuclear power plant is at the hub, and we would like to welcome all of you to Changwon. The President will deliver his opening remarks.
원전산업의 핵심 기지인
The central hub of nuclear power plant of the Republic of Korea is Changwon, and I'm very glad to see you all in Changwon. To look at the history of our nuclear power plant, it really speaks for itself what a brave and grand steps the Republic of Korea had taken. The Gori nuclear power plant 1, Unit 1, everyone thinks that is the initial plant. However, actually, the first president, Lee Seung-man, was the one who initiated the nuclear power plant development. And in 1956, there was an agreement with the U.S. about nuclear power plant development. And ever since, we have developed the establishment of R&D centers so that we could start our journey into the nuclear power plant industry. And also, the relevant departments were established in Seoul National University and other universities, and this was a very wise and pioneering step of President Lee. And then onwards, former President Park Chung-hee had revived and actually led the nuclear power plant industry, and that was the basis for our nuclear power plant industry of Korea. And with this, the Republic of Korea had become the 10th, one of the 10 economies around the world, and the nuclear power plant was one of the leading forces. And with the affordable electricity, we were able to compete with the Japanese industries, and now the nuclear power industry had become one of the export industries that are leading the export of Korea. And this is directly linked to livelihoods of the people.
2기 건설과 운영 과정에
And we are
15조 원의
building
생산 유발
2
효과와
units, and with
14만
these
명의
2
고용
units,
창출
we
효과가
have 15 trillion Korean won worth of economic effect and 14,000 jobs created. And extrapolating to this to 6 decades, this would save 64 trillion won compared to LNG industries. And also, the high value-added industries will be created with this nuclear power plant. And for our sustainable development, nuclear power plant is a must. Semiconductors, AI, bio, all these industries are changing into a new era. And one nuclear power of 1.3 gigawatts is necessary for a complex to operate. And such electricity is an astounding amount. And one semiconductor factory uses this amount of electricity, meaning that we need a profound quantity of electricity that is created by nuclear power plants. And Changwon is the place where such electricity and nuclear power plants are in operation. For the last several decades, it has been leading the nuclear industry of Korea. And right after I visited Changwon, after taking office, I was quite shocked because the regional industry was collapsing. The revenue fell to 1/10, and the companies had to borrow money from banks because they did not have money to pay the salaries of the people. And such policies of the previous era was really bringing a devastating result to the people and the livelihoods of the nuclear power plant industry. And therefore, my utmost priority was the revival of nuclear power plant. And right after taking office, we resumed the construction of Shinhanul Power Plants Unit 3 and 4, and we initiated procedures to continue the operation of 10 nuclear power plants. And with the Team Korea, we had secured 4 trillion won in nuclear exports. And there are many countries around the world who are really willing to work with Korea. And the nuclear power plant ecosystem centered around Changwon is on a normalizing path. The government, going beyond this, we would like to make this year the first year of nuclear power plant resurgence, and we are going to avidly support this initiative. First of all, we will provide 3.3 trillion won worth of nuclear power plant work and 1 trillion won in special financing. This is not only about the contract itself, but we are going to preemptively provide the subsidiaries so that the companies can really work smoothly. And also, we are going to support the company's investment activities by including the facility investment and R&D for nuclear power plant manufacturing. And we will make this eligible for tax support. And in addition, we are going to enable nuclear power plant companies, the workers, and university students majoring in nuclear energy to focus on their activities and studies. And our government, we have invested more than 4 trillion won in nuclear power R&D, including the small reactors. And there were a lot of oppositions, but I am proud that we have stood by this stance, and we are going to support the world-class technology that will be developed by such support. In this discussion, we are joined by the university students, and in the last administration, there was a 20% fall of the number of students in the universities majoring in nuclear power, and 18 departments around the universities around the country had closed their departments. But with my administration, this will not happen anymore, and we are going to revive such industrial endeavors. And we are going to enact a special law for nuclear power industry support, including SMR, to strengthen the institutional foundation. And also, 2050 mid to long-term nuclear power roadmap will be established to achieve carbon neutrality and to create a stable nuclear power ecosystem. And Changwon, for the last 50 years, the innovative development of Changwon was actually the one that was the development of the nuclear of the Republic of Korea. In the 1980s, it was at the forefront of electrical engineering development, and in the 90s, it was also at the forefront of development of the industry. And this is a place where it's the heart of the industrial development, encompassing shipbuilding and many other industries. 50 years ago,
지금 4만 배가 증가해서 지난해에는 역대 최대인 60조 원을 돌파했습니다.
Last year, we have achieved 60 trillion won of revenue in this regard, and we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Changwon Industrial Complex, and for this to celebrate its centennial anniversary, we are going to do our utmost. First of all, we are going to make this place a venue of convergence where industry meets culture, and we're going to lift the uniform use regulations and industrial restrictions so that we can create a cultural complex centers where cafes and many living convenient spaces for living could come in, and this will be promoted by our project. And Sannidan Street project will be promoted in earnest to create a cultural complex and create pedestrian-friendly streets. And also the outdated factories will be rebuilt into something else that could be utilized. And also we are going to actively support investments in regional strategic industries of more than 20 trillion won. And we are going to revise the relevant regulations. And yesterday at Ulsan, during the livelihood discussion, I have pledged that we are going to cancel the Greenbelt restriction. Changwon actually has a very high degree of Greenbelt zone, and the companies who wanted to build factories in this area had no choice but to turn away. And by canceling the Greenbelt zone in Changwon, we are going to create a national industrial complex for convergence of defense and nuclear power, and also including the SMR industry. The Changwon area would be focusing on SMR cluster zone, and we're going to support this. We believe the private sector should be pulling and the government should push the initiatives, and therefore we are going to promote corporate innovation park first in Koje, and this is where the country will take the government is not taking the lead, but it is the private industry, private sectors who are taking the lead. So, and that we are giving the land expropriation rights to the companies so that the corporations can lead in developing these areas into an innovation park. And the government will support by tax support and the regulatory supports and all the supports that it can do and mobilize all policy means to support these companies. And we are going to expand this corporate innovation park nationwide. And for the next 10 years, we're going to invest 3 trillion won to develop tourism in the southern region encompassing Gyeongnam, Busan, Ulsan, and Honam, which will start this year. And we are going to develop the southern region into the center of future tourism. We hope that today's discussion will become the inflection point for everyone to come together with good opinions, and we are going to reflect promptly your good opinions so that we are sure that the revitalization of nuclear power industry will take effect.
That was our live coverage of President Yoon Suk-yeol's speech ahead of the country's 14th policy discussion with citizens under the theme of reigniting nuclear energy sector. We'll bring you more details on the discussion in our upcoming newscast at noon, Korea time. Thanks for watching.